Welcome to the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we unpack the messy, beautiful intersection of creativity and business with the artists, marketers, and founders shaping our culture. Hey friends, I'm Carl, founder of Epic Made, and I'm the host of the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we share our thoughts on creativity, art, and business. Past guests include Anthony Deptula, president of BMP Creative and leader of high-volume social-first campaigns for brands like Netflix. Dr. Jeremy Weiss, co-founder of Rise 25 and longtime podcast strategist. And Mario Kroll, 30-year gaming and entertainment industry PR veteran and founder of Uber Strategist. I'm forever grateful for the supporters of our podcast, and we are always open to more sponsors that are aligned with our creativity. That said, Pixel Retentive is brought to you by the creative gurus at Epic Made. Epic Made is a creative studio that produces entertainment quality animation and illustration for brands that want to stand out in gaming, entertainment, and pop culture. We help companies tell stories that resonate with imaginative audiences and turn viewers into fandom. Whether your brand needs a creative strategy, an exciting trailer, a fully animated series, or some engaging motion graphics, we got you covered. Visit epicmade.net and let's collaborate on your next creative campaign. All right, got the intro out of the way. With us today.
Can I endorse you on that thing? I want to be your spokesperson on the I have two goals. Two goals to this podcast. One, I want to be one of the names mentioned at the front end. So in the future, I don't know how I get there, but
we'll put you there, Tim. You're there.
Wow, already. That's all right.
Consider it done.
I feel like I should be sponsoring this podcast, so we should talk about that too. Because I'm a big supporter.
I love that. Yeah, well, thank you, Tim. Well, with us today, we have Tim here, Tim Thompson, owner and chief revolution thinker at RevThink, which is where I met Tim. Super pumped to have you, Tim. So a little bit about Tim. For nearly 30 years, Tim has been at the forefront of the industry-shaping movements in the creative world. From being a founding member of Imaginary Forces to collaborating with Beeple on Web3 initiatives, through RevThink, he's become a leading voice for creative entrepreneurs, developing frameworks like the 7 ingredients and the factors method to help studios and founders build sustainable, scalable businesses. He's also built platforms like Rev Community and the Rev Thinking podcast, and the weekly briefing to support creative leaders around the world. Today, we're diving into creative leadership, the business of art, and what it really takes to build a company without losing the soul of the work. That's going to be fun.
I don't know who wrote that bio, but they deserve a raise. Bios are so funny because what do you say or how do you capture it? Even just when you say founding member of Imaginary Forces to the Web3 initiatives with Beeple, those are bookends of 20 plus years. And there's a lot in between just those 20 years alone. So thanks for having me on. It's great to be here and give me a moment to reflect on what the last 30 years have been like in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on that fact, I'd love for the audience to get to know you a little bit better. So what do you think? So I mentioned in the thing, you've been in the industry for over 30 years, but in that 30 years, what project jumps out to you as something that you're the most proud of?
Oh, it's interesting. The way I express moments in my career, I call it touching the zeitgeist. Ooh. So there's been a couple times, probably 3 times that I've touched the zeitgeist. So the first one is when I first got started. I quite literally, went to college in the San Francisco area. My girlfriend at the time was coming down to LA. I always wanted to be in LA. So I drove down when she drove down here. We did not live together. But I did marry her. So, that turned out well too.
Worked out.
But I didn't have any leads and I parked my car in Burbank, California and literally went door to door. I just went door to door.
Studios?
Yes. I started at what was NBC at the time. This is 1990. So pre-internet, which I know that you don't even know what that means because you were born after the internet, but you would fill out paper applications, right? So to go door to door wasn't that big of a deal. You get stopped by security guards or receptionists. That's the way it worked. But I had no resume. They would ask me to fill out an application. I did the best I could. But by the end of that day, I had three job offers. Um,
Wow.
Two of them were worth like post housework. So everything early on was a runner. You just it was a day job. You made a minimum wage. You got, you know, 25 cents a mile for driving around, and you delivered packages and did around stuff. So I got three job offers by the end of that day, and one of them was Dick Clark Productions. And Dick Clark was, known for American Bandstand, but he also did large TV events. So like the Golden Globes, that's one of his creations.
Oh,
Um, the American Music Awards is another one of his creations. The Jerry Lewis Telethon at the time, AFI Academy. There was like all these things that they did in live TV. And so I got a job there in their mailroom, and I took it. And within months, I was, at the American Music Awards, walking the red carpet. It was a funny moment. This is a total side note, but the
good.
show I worked on was hosted by Meatloaf, Reba McEntire, and Will Smith.
Wow.
The special musical guest was this new guy onto the scene who had just released an album. Dr. Dre had produced it. The guy's name was Snoop Dogg. And they were
Oh,
so afraid of Snoop Dogg, they recorded him the day before because they were afraid he was going to swear, or it was Gin and Juice was the song. So I think the way the lyrics went is smoking, smoking instead of smoking endo. And
oh.
they changed the lyrics of it. So I think that's funny. Like 25 years later, Snoop Dogg's the one on TV, and we're afraid of Will Smith being on television. You know what I mean? Like
Smacking Chris Rock.
totally, a total flip of reality in that period.
uh,
But so I worked
Absolutely.
on the American Music Awards, and then the group that did that went off to do the Oscars. So literally within months of being in Los Angeles, I was walking the red carpet of the Oscars, working just as a PA, working in the production offices, doing whatever it takes to kind of get the show done. But that's the first zeitgeist moment. That was like, oh, I was on TV. There was billions of people watching it. 90s Oscars were kind of like a thing back then. The second project was RGA Los Angeles, which became Imaginary Forces, and that's the opening credits to Seven. So that really kind of jump started my career for real
Yeah.
because we were invited to every major project. It was really fun. Biggest directors, biggest studios, and the digital technology age was coming more into the mainstream of production. So we had to just figure it out. And if you were one of the people figuring it out, you were years ahead of anyone else in the industry. So I was doing this in 97. Most people who are my clients today started their business in 2006. So it's a
Right.
decade more of practice than other people. So that's probably the second zeitgeist. And the third is working with people who was at the time an art director with one of my clients. And he just happened to be doing NFTs on the side. And then, one afternoon, all that changed. And before you know it, we were doing millions and millions of dollars of NFTs. And that company exited for over $100 million when they kind of wrapped it up. So
Wow.
very fast 9-month period. So those three, the zeitgeist moments are kind of fun. When you're working on a project everybody knows or can quote something that you did or whatever. Those are fun moments.
Absolutely. The stuff I immediately like gravitate a bit towards Beeple. Just on the creative side, you're looking at like, so Beeple put in his lumps for 5,000 days, right? Like
Mm.
made 5,000 unique pieces of art and then starting doing NFTs. And look, previous to NFTs, there was no scarcity for digital artists, right? Like, yeah, you could do a limited run of prints and you could sign them and whatever, but like that doesn't have the same appeal that NFTs did in that hype cycle. And I think that will circle back in the future. But the fact is that like Beeple sold a piece of art as a living artist and that's this to date still the second highest
Yeah.
piece of art that's
Damien
ever
Hirst,
been.
right?
Yeah.
Damien
Damien
Hirst and then
Hirst sold a
yeah.
human skull encrusted in diamonds, and that was the only thing that beat Beeple's piece of art. Like this is
Yeah.
wow. So that's, I mean, a true zeitgeist moment, right? Like
Well,
that's you.
here's the thing is like much like the seven title sequence, it can never be repeated. I mean,
Right.
it took 5,000 days, not premeditated, just 5,000 days of dedication to something. And then a moment in time, there's a technology shift. And then somebody had to do it.
Yep.
So, the recognition of his valuable play, but he was dedicated to the craft, still is today.
Still is.
But you can never get that moment back, the hype, the prestige, the situation there. So, he's enshrined in that moment because you can't repeat. Somebody else can come along and beat it for a different reason, but not anything on that level.
Yeah.
The title sequencer 7, it has a similar like time space requirement, because what makes that title sequence so unique is that we could edit on an Avid. So we could do nonlinear editing, but there was no technology to go back to film at that great length. So we had to start with film. We had to basically digitize that film onto an Avid. We had to edit it nonlinear, and then we had to go find 4 frame edits physically in reels, and there's 26 miles of film. So you're digging through 26 miles of film, cutting out 4 frame edits and reassembling it into like little animations
Wow.
that are then composited using an optical camera. So we're using light exposure on a negative to make it done. So that hand built quality will never be done again. There's no reason
No.
why. People tell me, oh, when I went to school, I recreated that title sequence. And I was like, how many people did it take? No, I just did it by myself in After Effects. I'm like, cool. There were 17 of us making that
Right.
title sequence. So that's part of the coolness of that, or the moment of it, is it's also just captures a moment in time, never to be repeated. And those are
Yeah.
kind of, lucky to be in those moments, I guess.
It's just really cool though, and then be lucky, but also like you hear quotes about luck from successful people, and it's like laboring under correct knowledge, right? Like it's like, or people have different little acronyms for it, but the
Yeah.
idea is like putting yourself out there in the right places to get lucky, right? You can't win the lottery if you never buy a ticket, right? Like, but
Yeah.
if you're putting yourself in the right place at the right time, you go, hey, I'm going to LA. I'm just going to go. Like, and I'm going to knock on 15 doors. Well, you got lucky, right? You got lucky. Dick Clark was like, yeah, sure. Yeah, go work in the mailroom, right? And you didn't have an ego about it. Like you didn't have you didn't have the clout to have an ego, right? Like, yeah, let's get in the mailroom. Let me make my way up
Heck
there.
yeah.
And that's what it takes. I think on every level, that same mindset as you're scaling and trying to do something with anything, but business or a podcast or whatever you're trying to do in your life. And I think you kind of tapped into some of that with what you have going on at RevThink, and you have your seven ingredients. And I was just looking through this. I was like, okay, all right, I
Yeah.
can see this. But I'd love to talk about some of how you came up with that, and like how that kind of folds into all of your thinking about all this.
Yeah, that's thanks. Yeah, I there is like some reality check to what it takes to be a professional, right? There, to some reality, there are very, very talented people that never get a chance.
Yep.
And that could just be location or timing or other life issues that just don't ever give you that chance. So creating the opportunity and putting yourself out there is some of what it takes to have a career or make it in these areas, these areas. So I am blessed to have a family and a location and a drive and a car and a place to live. Those things that I
Born
needed in
in
order
born in the
to
States,
go door to door at
Yeah.
Burbank.
Yeah.
But there's also plenty of people that didn't go door to door.
Oh yeah.
And just that moment of that decision to say, no, failure is not an option. I have to, it is inside of me
Mm,
and it has to come out. I can't resist what this nature is telling me to do. I want to do this for a living. I always wanted to, and I'll go do whatever it takes. And that's that drive kind of makes something happen. So I'm really impressed
100%.
by people that like come from, you know, Brazil and
Yeah.
do the same thing. Like, wow, that's a lot harder of a jump than I have. I mean, more power to
Yeah.
them.
Just the
Um,
cultural shift before you start learning about language and all the other things you don't know. Just the scale. Like I'd
Imagine.
be terrified to move to another country where I didn't speak the language, even if every opportunity in the world was there. Like it would be terrifying. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if I would do that.
Yeah. My friend Marcel Zayul, he's the founder of State Design, and that's his story. He saw Buck work that Buck did. He wanted to work for them. He did everything he could to get to America from Brazil. Exactly it. There's a language issue. There's a cultural issue. There's a finance issue. Like it doesn't play itself out. But just knowing how to do it. And then state design is, Marcel speaks around the world. He's one of the most premier studios around. He does some incredible high end work. He's developed his own style, his own language, visual language. It's so impressive. And I just had to drive from San Francisco. You know what I mean? Like that's a 6 hour drive in a beat up Toyota Corolla, but it's hardly trying to get here from Brazil, you know?
The most valuable per dollar car in America for many, many years, just for the record.
Yeah. And listen, that car is probably still alive today. That thing was not going to give up. No, it wasn't going to give up at all. So I do think there's that. But kind of answer your question, you know, what I also feel very lucky about is perspective. For some reason, I always thought about my career as much as I cared about the job I was doing. So I have this idea or perspective of the long game. And this industry is not nice. It is very competitive. It doesn't care if you have a career. It doesn't care if you only have a one-hit wonder. It really doesn't. So if it's something you want to do, you have to dedicate yourself to thinking forward and understand what it's like to be and who you need to be in the future. And you have to invest in that person today.
Yeah.
And a skill of observation or looking at pattern or pattern recognition is kind of some of what I've been able to do. So going from being a producer and working at, you know, straight for a studio. So that's Imaginary RGA, Imaginary Forces, You and Company, Trailer Park is where I kind of like finished that run. To, hey, I think I see a pattern. I see a pattern of behavior. I see a pattern of success. I see a pattern of failure. And I might not know all the answers, but somebody needs to take this other perspective and introduce it into this industry.
Yeah.
And in my case, I had enough friends that were starting studios in 2006. It was a big booming moment. I was part of an elite group of people that when they started companies, they also became elite companies. And so to throw myself at those problems and just become initially a freelance problem solver made me start discerning other problems that are in this industry that no one's talking about. So something like the 7 ingredients or the factors method, you know, those names came later, the observations come first, and then you start figuring out. It allowed me to market myself to say, hey, do you have these issues? Do you have these finance issues or these production issues or freelancer issues? And when someone said, yes, Mike, I think I can solve that problem, that's how you get into the practice. And RevThink is really a practice of helping my friends and then learning alongside them and then scaling what I've learned so that other people can benefit. So now, you know, onboarding you would take 35 days. Onboarding somebody in 2006 took me about 4 or 5 months because I had to learn it and then I had to like understand it and then I had to implement it. And now it's like, I'm pretty sure I know the answers. Let me just implement it there and see if we can't get to those results. And the results speak for themselves. So it kind of allows you to have a practice, you know?
Love that. Yeah. I mean, you know, just looking over some of the cards, it's like this entrepreneurship, creative, production, sales, finance, marketing, operations. Like that's the whole picture. And that entrepreneurship piece is an interesting thing. Like I think there's something genetic there. Like I don't know that most people, every entrepreneur I know, like has something pulling them that like doesn't allow them to sit in a place and do like something routine. Like I literally wanted to die when I had a 9-to-5 job in college and I was starting this studio, you know, and I was just so depressed and like just packing on pounds and just, I would get the Sunday scaries. Like every Sunday, I'd be like, I have to fucking go to work tomorrow. And my job was easy. Like I worked on a help desk. I took phone calls, effortlessly fixed problems, did a bunch of tech support shit. I just hated it. It was just light. It was soulless and like monotonous and repetitive, and everything about my ADD brain was screaming for any sort of like just stimulation that was meaningful. And that was never going to be that job or any other job that I realized. It was like, I think the reason I've been successful for 20 years, because I didn't have most of those things for 20 years. I just knew that plan B was me being depressed and miserable. Like, so if plan A didn't work, then I had to figure it the fuck out because there was no other world. Like, there's no other world for me. I have to sink or swim on my own merits. And then, I started that. So there's just something there about like, I think there's a genetic predisposition for some people that I think I have like oppositional defiance disorder as well. Like where it's just like, nobody can just tell me what to do all day. Like I can't, like, it's
Yeah.
like this. So I
I
don't know.
love the diagnosis. Well, the elements I've seen, actually my very first client had three partners. The company's still around, by the way. I mean, they're going on 30 years too. It's Roger.tv is the name, and it had three partners at the time. And each partner had a different focus. So I would joke that the partners were fame, fortune, and freedom. That's what I joked. I'm like,
Ooh,
your fame, your fortune, your freedom. That's what your
ooh,
priorities. But I think in that diagnosis, it's also some reality of like, that's what makes us do this. Right. So notoriety is a big part of what we're doing, the fame part of it. And
yep,
it's often where we invest most of our time and effort. Like to do a project that is known is almost a good business practice because it gets you more projects. So that
yep,
notoriety is an element to it. So fame's a very big piece of it. Fortune is something you have to understand is not just a benefit or a gift that comes from it, but it's also a necessity to keep the business going. It has to be a viable entity in order to stay alive. And the idea that of where to make the money and how to find that money is a key part of it. Sometimes it seems to be an enemy of the creative. Money feels like it's enemy of creative. And I've learned to the practice and with the conviction because creative must win, it's understanding how to make creative win using finance opposed to at the cost of it. But so fame and fortune, and then freedom is what you're talking about.
mm,
The freedom to practice what I want, have whatever clients I want, change. Like I don't necessarily want to follow someone else's direction. I want to follow my own. Those elements are a key piece of it. So the entrepreneur, often the creative entrepreneur has fame, fortune, and freedom.
yeah,
And then what I think I teach them when I come alongside them is how to use that towards influence. Because influence is basically the commerce within our industry to move things forward. I don't mean like social media influencer kind of influence. I mean the ability that when you come in a room and you state an opinion, a creative opinion, other people will listen to you. So, Kyle Cooper, who did the title sequence for Seven, tells David Fincher what he wants to do with the title sequence, not Fincher telling Kyle, like, because it's your specialty. You have influence in that specialty and you do it. And it's often something we need to achieve is how to leverage who we are and what we do to have that moment of influence. So that's a maturity. It's a career maturity to get there. But that's one of the things that I feel like you have to know you're striving for. And it's good having a partner, someone come along to help you kind of coach you through that process.
I absolutely love that framework. Fame, fortune, and freedom. I realized, I think at some point in the last decade that like the real motivator for me definitely was freedom, right? Like I need to be able to do whatever I want, whenever I want, pretty much like across the board, right? Like so, but I also understand like fame and fortune lend themselves to giving me more freedom, right? Like,
Yeah, it's the exchange, right?
yeah,
One of them is probably drives us more. So if
mm-hmm.
freedom's the one that more, you have to learn how to put yourself out there and get recognition and how to run a business. Like you have to know the business principles. Buy low,
Yes,
sell high is the
yeah,
only way to make profit. So you have to know what you're purchasing and how to convert that into a higher value to sell it.
yeah, absolutely. Learning all of that on the fly has been wild, right? Like I went to art school. Like I didn't
That's
like
right.
I, like it's like I took math 101 and look, I went to a math science accelerated high school. It was actually really smart, but art was what was like it excited me, right? And I always wanted to get into storytelling. I loved fantasy and the narratives of all that, and Game of Thrones and Lord of the Game of Thrones wasn't around then, but well, I didn't read the books yet, but I love Lord of the Rings, loved EverQuest, loved gaming, love all the like Zeldas and just all that sort of stuff. So when I went to college, like I'd already done a lot of computer programming and a bunch of stuff like that, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I wanted to make video games, and the closest thing I could find to that was like graphic design as a concentration in a fine art program. So, but it's
Yeah.
yeah,
They
and it
definitely don't
served
teach you
me.
business in art school.
Taught me no
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. Which
which
thank
was
goodness,
fine.
by the way, because I have a career because they don't. I have a job to do. So I'm because I could figure out the business part. I've been kind of lucky, but it's not like balancing a checkbook at home. That's
No,
the thing. And you don't make decisions in your business the way your uncle would make decisions in his business. Because it's if he's a mechanic or sells, something consumer product goods, that's not what we do. We're a
no,
prima donna business. We're expressing and sharing talent and exchanging talent, not goods. Um, we might do that as like a service level, but I even think like I don't think we're a service level business as much as we are a prima donna business. And if you understand that difference, it can be a lot more challenging to explain that to your accountant who's giving you
yeah.
advice or whatever that is. So to have that creative entrepreneur filter, so not just entrepreneur, but creative entrepreneur filter is something that's very helpful. And the Rev community that we started was really for that reason. It's other people like you. It's birds of a feather. So now you don't have to teach your entrepreneurial group what you do for a living because they won't understand it. These are entrepreneurs. They are already in that group. They might do live action or they might do concert videos, but they still are creative entrepreneurs. So they are very much like you in that way. And that gets rid of that loneliness factor, but also like get some strong advice coming from some of your peers.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear you say that. And so I was in a Streetwise MBA course sponsored by the state of Virginia, and I got in there, and we had to have all these metrics, and you had to have a certain number of employees and gross revenue, and been in business this long, and then you had to apply, and blah blah. And we get in there, and so like now they're teaching us like all these things to scale our business, and it was great information and lots of good stuff in there, and it really worked for like every business in there. But I was in the third cohort. There's like 20 businesses and every cohort. And I was the first creative entrepreneur they had, like true bona fide
Mm,
creative. But they had some people doing like, they interior design and like,
uh, wedding
they,
videos or
yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah, stuff like
Yeah.
that. But like, they didn't have like they didn't even understand how to evaluate what it was I was trying to like. I was trying to like articulate that, and I'd love to hear you break down the difference between a prima donna business versus a service business because I still couldn't articulate it. And I was like, we want to be known for our creativity, and I want people to come to us to tell stories and do things. And like, while we do animation, that's really amazing, and we do some branding. Like, I don't care if they come to us and they want a 3D sculpture for their foyer because like we can do all the storytelling through that, and we have the skills and expertise. And like, and I ended up understanding how we couldn't have but so many things we were known for that we needed to climb a vertical first to build our reputation to be able to do anything valuable outside of that. So I did niche down into 2D animation, which allowed us to scale all the way up to working with, AAA brands across the board that everybody knows. But like, what is that differentiator between a prima donna business versus a service business?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's, service businesses like accountants or doctors or all that kind of stuff. It does feel like, you're exchanging hours for a service. That's
Mm-hmm.
what it was. Um, Opposed to like, a sandwich shop. Like the marketplace is, this sandwich is really yummy. I pay $10 for that sandwich and not, some other sandwich. So there is some kind of reality check of like what we're selling and how we're selling it. But and a value proposition. So there's nothing, every business book written within our industry and related to our industry will talk about a value proposition. So instead of, well, I'll just start with this, like a commodity based business is really selling something in exchange for a dollar. So a lot of us might currently be selling commodities. My day rate is a commodity. I'll give you a day if you give me that rate. It's a one-on-one exchange. Or I'll give you that output for the same dollars. And a commodity base, the commodity part of our industry is a comparison. Carl, you're faster in your day than your competitor. I'll pay you for your day rate. I might even give you more for your day, but I'm still buying you by the day.
Right.
A service-based business takes commodities and it brings it together. So a service, I say, hey, can you do this for me? And you say, sure, I know which commodities to buy. I'll buy this editor. I'll hire this DP. I'll do the animation and so on, and you wrap it together. And that's the service. And I say, great, because I don't want to go gather those commodities. Just you grab it for me, provide me for the service. But you still are wrapping together commodities with a little bit of a markup.
Yep.
So that's a value-based part of it. And to some degree, we don't have what other industries have, which is like a supply and demand issue. So like, it's not necessarily like, hey, because there is fewer of us doing something, the demand will go up and our price goes up. There's an element to that, but that's on the commodity side. On a prima donna side is where you say, oh, do you want me? You want my point of view? You want the way I translate that into pixels that no one else can touch? You want my special product, my certain way of talent? Well, I'm a prima donna. A prima donna is like the voice of the opera that brought everyone to come and see it because
Mm,
only that person could do it. So it's not, I don't compete at any commodity because there's no one else could do what I do. I'm a prima donna. And I learned
right.
this at when I was working at Trailer Park. They actually hired two consultants when they were being purchased when I was there. They were being purchased, and they had hired some consultants to kind of figure things out. And I was doing operations. I had written some software for operations, and every day I had to deal with these consultants. Well, these consultants came from the hospital industry, service base, and education, service base. And they were trying to tell us utilization. Hey, if you increase people's hours, you can increase your rates. So they were trying to tell us like you need to get your editors and animators to work more in order to raise money. And I'd say, I don't think that's true because Nick works with Tom Cruise. And only Nick, Tom Cruise will only choose Nick. Tom Cruise will pay us whatever we want to because Nick is here. You can't. How many more hours do we need to get Tom Cruise? We don't need any more hours. We have the best. We have the most prima donna person in Nick, and they had 20 of those. They had 20 editors like that. So we could ask for something because we were doing something unique. I mean, we were helping Pixar blend into Disney by the way we edited and told stories through trailers. Like we were doing really, really important industry related stuff. Nobody cared about day rate. I mean, we had we had a bid or whatever, but it wasn't
Sure.
why people were choosing us. They were choosing us because we had a unique point of view, a unique way of getting something done, and we could always deliver. So that's what we're doing. So your uncle who runs a mechanic shop can't say, "Hey, get the price of oil down, and you can do oil changes more often." Like, what do you? We don't.
Right.
There's no oil in our system. It's basis talent, and that's what we're trying to navigate. And when you are the talent, and you're a freelancer, that's one proposition. When you're running a business and you have to start exchanging talent and working through talent, some of the hardest decisions you have to make is bringing someone on and paying for that salary or sending somebody away because they no longer fit. The talent that they have is not meeting the direction we're going as a company. So that exchange is really, really difficult. And that, having peers and having mentors and advisors to help you walk through that is so helpful because you can live inside an echo chamber and just not make those decisions, healthy decisions. You can hold on to people too long or not say yes soon enough to make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of things in that, right? So that's what I've been told. I've been, I guess I've read Blair Inns and
Oh yeah, of course.
David Baker stuff, and listen to their podcasts a lot. But the idea there is it's a value based pricing. You're trading on your fame, right? You're saying, hey, look, there is no two versions of us. Like we do this thing in our unique way, and if you want it, it's going to cost this. And you get to name that price. And as long as you're not over leveraging your reputation, they'll say yes, right? Like,
Yeah.
which is beautiful. And I think that's a mindset thing that some people don't get. And early on, like I started my company as me. In design school, I didn't have any clue about that. Oh, I felt bad charging people $25 an hour, and especially if like, oh, well, that didn't actually take me a whole hour. Maybe I should only bill them, 75% of an hour. And it's like, way. But he's still getting the same value that he hoped to get out of this. Does it matter how much time I spend on it? No. And then when I started going, oh, well, let's do project based pricing, right? And it's like, okay. So it's like you're taking those steps. It's like, we can do this really fast. So like we can make more money. And then it's like, okay, well, we're only going to pick 5 projects. And if you're lucky, it's going to be you guys and 4 other people. And this is the rate, take it or leave it. We'll move on to the other person, right? Because we have
Yeah.
so much demand, right? And that's the dream of where you want to get to. I guess where most people would want to
Well,
get
if
to with
you're
their studios.
exchanging, you kind of know where you are. So I have this concept called the value pyramid, and you
Mm-hmm.
kind of know where you are based off of what you're exchanging in the marketplace. So if you're exchanging days and day rates, well, then you're in the lowest level of the value pyramid, which is the commodity value, right? You're basically exchanging time and day. You're an artist exchanging what you have, which is an ability. Um, when you when you take all those commodities and wrap it up into the service-based business, right? That's the first step of and the next step above the commodities in the value pyramid. But if you take multiple services and you wrap them up, you sell strategy. So some of what David
Yeah.
and Blair are teaching is it's a value-based business. They're teaching you how to move up that value pyramid because a strategy company knows which services to use because they're selling a result. Hey, you know what you need? You need this strategy to get this result. And the client says, well, how do I get that? And you go, no problem. You hire this service and this service and this service. And then they hire this commodity, this commodity, this commodity, right? So it kind of
Mm.
trickles down. And a lot of people, when they think of strategy, they think of strategist, which is you're going the wrong way. You're just buying another commodity for your service, opposed to actually selling strategy. So I have a client right now. He commands $4 to $5 million a project, and he's keeping 50% of it, just keeping it because the strategy is so great. It doesn't cost him. It's the value is all there. He just keeps half of $4 million because that's his strategy is so good, right? So David and Blair are trying to get people, I think of it maturity, maturing into understanding the value of your thoughts and your point of view. And then one step above strategy. So if you take multiple strategies and you wrap them together, it's like asking the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary of State, Defense, and Finance, hey, or Treasury, should we go to war? And so, you know, defense is like, yeah, that's what we do. Let's go to war, right? And commerce is like, it could be good for the economy. It couldn't. And Secretary of State's like, no, don't go to war. Don't go to war. So you can have 3 different competing strategies. And how do you find out the answer? Vision. I want to accomplish this goal. Therefore, going to war would be bad. I shouldn't do that. And then that plays itself down. So if you can get to a point where you're helping, coming alongside anybody in the industry, or just making your own vision, you're at the highest part of that value pyramid. And to some degree, we all want to get there, but we're also playing somewhere in those value pyramids in exchange. And that's where you say, like, it's learned, I think. There's something that you have to be exposed to understand it. And it's not just working harder or getting more of something, it's actually understanding the difference between those steps and then practicing it and getting yourself in those opportunities.
Amazing. Like a masterclass. Obviously, you've talked about this many times before.
Listen, 20 years of thinking about stuff. You're only giving me an hour to unload 20 years of thoughts here.
I love it. I love it. Something I was thinking, and that we kind of mentioned in the lead in is like how so there is a space where people get too focused on all of the business sides, right? Like how do we layer in the strategy and do more of this and be more profitable and all that? And how do you counteract that with the very real need for creatives to feel like their ideas are not losing their integrity, that they're not selling out to the bottom line all the time, and thus losing their inspiration to create good shit? Because that can happen. I've seen it happen a lot. So how do you balance that?
Yeah. So think of the Sistine Chapel, right? An incredible human achievement. It is very well known and clearly something that we can revere as amazing talent. it was financed by the Catholic Church, right? So in other words, the creative ability to get something done. You don't get the David without like a bunch of financiers saying, let's help you buy that marble to cut the David out of it.
Yeah.
So there is all creative needs creative backing
Yep.
as part of it. And we should celebrate that, not run away from it. So in a way, like in the commercial space, if you're a commercial artist and you like to and you're very talented at making commercial art, that's marketing or elements that support a brand or something like that. Amazing stuff. We're very inspired by it. We live in pop culture and that stuff is part of pop culture. And you want to do that stuff, you get financed by the brands that you're marketing for or the
Yep.
agencies that are making money doing it. So it's not actually not an evil. It is the means to get something done. It just is. Um, ask Van Gogh. Van Gogh struggled his entire life trying to get stuff done because the only person financing was his brother, but at least his brother financed him. And now we have a museum in Amsterdam full of his original paintings because his brother paid his bills all the time. So these two things come together. What makes it different is the concept that creative must win. You have to
Boom.
go into it. I don't actually want to buy the commodity from you. I don't want to buy it by the hour. What I want is the result of your technique, your process, the way I feel on the other side of it. How do I owe you more because I feel good? Do I owe you less if I don't get that feeling? Like, no, that's not. I'm giving you the money and the trust that I'm going to get that result regardless. Um, so I think that's the field that we're in. And you have to, if you're an artist, you have to embrace that understanding that it's actually the financial element of it that gives you that freedom to do what you want to. So a freedom-based person can and should look at the things that they're not, fame and fortune, and say, oh, those two elements give me my freedom.
Those
If
are the
if
vehicles.
you're the
Yep.
fame-based piece, you have to look at the fortune and freedom parts of it to say, oh, that's what gives me the fame elements. In fact, like those three things almost play off each other. Like those three business partners played off each other to give each other the direction and momentum to make themselves successful.
I really love that framing. I'd never heard it put like that, and it makes so much sense. I can't stress enough how much I like that. Um, I think there's what do I want to say here? So
You ask me anything.
as we're moving forward here, and
Yeah.
technology is evolving. I mean, you've seen some wild technology evolutions in your 30-year career, and I profoundly, one, I plant the flag firmly as part of the Graphic Artists Guild and on the advocacy committee there and helping create the stances of the guild. And the guild has been writing the book on the pricing and ethical guidelines of graphic design and creative careers since the 80s. We got some clout there. But look, these data sets and these AIs have been created on stolen intellectual property. And I think that needs to be addressed and fixed in all the ways. And I won't get in too far deep on that. That said, we do have this fucking incredible technology, objectively incredible, and it's only evolving and getting more and more exciting. And I've watched a couple episodes of your podcast, I think, with Aaron Swarovski, and it's like there's so much we can do now with a small team that like it takes less and less money, I think, than it used to. Like I'm looking at like in the next 3 years, can I produce a full length animation with my team? That's 10 people. What might have taken 150, 200 people, a generation ago, right? So it's like there's something happening there where I think we're getting more and more potential to be free of some of the big decision makers and investors that are also going to limit the risk that you can take with the story you want to tell and how you can tell it and who you're allowed to piss off and who you're not, that kind of stuff. So I think that,
Yeah.
like you said, it's a vehicle and it helps and the money's there and like you need those things to make great things happen. Like, Sixteen Chapel, like, Michelangelo couldn't have gone up there and just painted a bunch of sacrilegious shit if the church is funding it, but he might have felt that way and he definitely hid some shit in there. And we know about these things. So it's just interesting. I don't know. What do you think
Yeah.
about that side of things?
Well, so we're on a journey together. And it's interesting because a technology is doing something in the world that we've never seen before in human history.
Yep.
So, history will tell us something about how we lived our life now and what we're talking about now. There's some reflection, and you probably heard this too, about the Luddites, and I don't know if everyone knows the story of the Luddites, but essentially they were the people that they would buy heavy, really, really expensive licenses in order to separate. It was a cotton um, uh, gin, I guess, inside of windmills, and they would buy these really expensive licenses to do this professionally. And then technology evolved, and the windmill could do it itself, and all of a sudden, like, these humans didn't have their job anymore. The thing that was really important to them wasn't available anymore. So they took their shoes, the sabots, hard wooden shoes, and they would throw that into the mill, and they would sabotage, like throw their wood in there and sabotage the windmills. So then the Luddites were following a guy, his last name was Ludd, and they're known today as the people, like, almost fools. Like,
Sure.
oh, you didn't like progression. You couldn't accept the reality of it, and you were going to slow down technology that clearly advanced everyone else besides yourself. And so it's almost like, there's an aspect when we're looking at technology today that some people are painting people like the Luddites, like, you just don't get it. It's going to happen, and woe is you, and you're just, you grow up or whatever. And I don't agree with that at all. I think that
Same.
there is something about the human experience that had come up with something original. So, sure, that David did not come out of that marble alone. It took the hand of a master to remove the marble to reveal the figure that we look at now as the David. The same thing is that computer would never have those images unless a human hand built them ahead of it. It did
Yep.
not come up with an original thought. And that's some of the issue we have, is that the technology has stolen what was a human experience up until this point to do something. So I think there's an element there that we have to reconcile with. I'm not really sure the outcome is going to be in favor of the humans, because it's moving so fast and it's so progressive, and there's so many other benefits that we might not really like what happens to that part of it, but there's a real experience there. On the other side of the equation, you would say, yeah, but artists all along have copied the masters before them. That's how you learn the craft and do something. So every famous artist we knew was referencing someone else's reference. And these computers, are they referencing it the same way? Not really. But the elements are going to happen are going to make a new tool. And I do believe there is a future native piece of content. I don't think it's come out yet, but there will be somebody in the future that will discover what's natively possible using generative art that could have never, ever been created before. And it will take a human to discover that future native element to it. And we will celebrate that person, and they'll be very well known for what they've done. And they will be part of art history from that point forward, because they did something there. So I also make very excited about what that experience is and what that future native item is. We just haven't seen it yet to get more excited than we are in the downs of it. So we're really in a band of history that's in that dark era. We can only see the past, we can't see the future, and we know that it's changing in a way that, if you've made a career of this, you don't really like it. It's disrupting a lot of what you invested in your career.
Yeah, I mean, people put thousands and decades of their life into mastering their craft, to have their craft essentially stolen, cloned, and then created on a accessible for $15 a month for someone to go, look, I can make art just
Yeah.
like you.
Yeah. Incredible.
Obviously, the storytelling, the detail, the nuance, like all of the subtleties that you learn when you are a master of your craft are lost in those translations. And but I do agree with you on all of that, actually. But I think the analog art is going to gain so much more value. Like the hand done things, people are going to really appreciate.
Yeah.
And there will be a lot of that. I think that really that will never go away. And I do think that, yeah, there's something coming, because creatives are going to create, right? And if you give them tools, they're going to make cool shit with it. So, like, if you give someone like myself abilities to create endless things with their imagination, And I'm really great at illustration, but I'm not super great at animation. And I'm decent at graphic design, but not really 3D sculpting. And like, you could get all into the things, and it's like, but if I can bridge all those gaps because I have the right ideas and I understand the storytelling, and now I can run all this together and leverage all, like, it's just wild. And I think you're right. We're going to hit something soon that's going to be so incredible that it couldn't have been done without AI, but is so clearly human authored, so clearly has deep human creativity in it. It's going to be amazing. And I'm exploring that space as an individual because I've always loved technology, and I've always loved art and creativity and storytelling. And I'm trying to navigate in a way that's respectful to my peers and respectful to the people that I represent, at the Graphic Artists Guild, but also understanding, like, this is a new universe of creative exploration, and like what is possible now is
And
inconceivable still.
it's not original. So like I had to just look this up so I got this order of events, but Mozart and Beethoven were contemporaries, kind of. The last 20 years of Mozart's life is the first 20 years of Beethoven's life. But Beethoven started playing piano at 6 months, or not that early, being
Sure.
sarcastic, but such a young age, they were contemporaries. The interesting thing about the two of them is that when Mozart started playing, there was no piano. He played the
Oh,
harpsichord, and the harpsichord is a different instrument, and the harpsichord plucks at strings. So Mozart is his first native language is dong 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 in the harpsichord world. The
wow.
piano came about, and then he adopted a technology to get there. Where Beethoven, 60 years after Mozart, or 40 years after Mozart, whatever the timeline is, has a native language of a piano. Now, where we sit today, we just look backwards in history and say Mozart and Beethoven, they're both amazing. But in the
Yes.
time, you can imagine the tension that Mozart's like, holy crap, I invested my entire life in this one instrument, and this 12-year-old is killing me in the pop charts, right?
Oh,
Because he can play a piano and I have to learn how to play that piano. So
yeah.
there we have moments in time that future tells a very different story about how relevant both players are and how important that timeline is and how we can celebrate both of them. But when you're in the moment having the human experience, it's not that clear or fair or fun. You have to
Mm,
kind of like have this weird competitive nature to things.
sure.
So, in some degree, we're just living that. The future native thing I'm talking about is somebody that picks up the piano from day one, and they're going to speak a very different language, where the rest of us are taking our past and prompting our past.
Mm,
Can you recreate what I've done in the past? Opposed to, do you know what's possible without knowing the past? I can just make things. I don't even know what the language is because I'm vibe coding it. I'm going to find brand new words, getting brand new things out there instead of
mm.
camera angles and 3D software verbiage we throw in there now and references to Gaussian. Blah, blah, blah. We're like, no,
Yeah,
something's
yeah.
like blurry, whatever, and get this computer to do something. So that's
I
like
see.
that's what we can look forward to. There will be some amazing, great people, and creative will still win. We just might not like what that means for our career or our
Right.
timing if you don't understand that and have to adopt, or we have to be a Mozart in a way and fight our way into the new technology shift. And listen,
Yes.
I reserve the right to be totally wrong with history. I only remember small elements of it, but these are always curious things to me when I heard them back in the past. So please comment if I have it wrong and clear up any fact finding. We don't have a fact finder on this thing, but we kind of
Not
need some
yet.
of that when I make up my
Man,
stories. But it's something like that.
hey, man, we're just trying to inspire people and get them
Yeah, yeah,
excited.
yeah.
So, it's all
Even
right.
if I'm wrong, just
If it's a
throw it
little
out there in
fuzzy on
AI,
the
make
facts,
AI
it's
believe
fine.
it's true.
Hey, facts are objective, opinions these days, and so I hear. Anyways, but every
Yeah.
time I hear about the times, I always think about the quote from Gandalf. Uh, you know, he says, Frodo says to him, I wish it not need have happened in my time." And then Gandalf says back to him, "And so do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us."
Yeah.
It sounds. I just love that. It always like makes me think. Yeah, you can get upset about us a bunch of shit and like, oh my god, it's not fair, it's not this, and then you go, you know what? I'm just gonna live my life the best way I can with the cards that were dealt to me, and whatever that looks like. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
you know what? A not so I don't hide this, but it's not so as well known as other parts of my career. But at one point, I quit. After I left Imaginary Forces, I kind of just walked away from the industry before I worked at Trailer Park, and I went to seminary. So I
Wow.
thought like I want to do something different. The years I spent in Imaginary Forces were great, but if we worked 100-hour weeks, it'd be a slow week. So burnout was real. And I wanted to ask myself
Yeah.
questions. I wanted to contribute to something or be part of something bigger and kind of like attached to life in a different way.
Yeah.
But so I went to seminary in my 30s. And, when you study an infinite God, you start seeing life in a very different perspective.
Yes.
And one of the things that flipped in my brain is the experience we're living is a collection of our past to get us to the present. But if you have an understanding that you actually were created for this time and this generation, it means you were created for this time of change in this moment. Like you have a role in it and you're supposed to participate in it. And an infinite God is pulling you towards that future because he's coming from the future into the present. We're coming from the past into the present. So he's pulling us this certain way. And so I do think I have a little bit of bigger questions or a desire to inspire people to say, don't you get it? Like this is the moment we get to be the people that history writes about because we embraced this situation and saw something unique and understood it. I'm not saying it's not scary, but we honestly can't fight all of this anyway. The momentum is doing something. The story of Pandora is a real story because it's happened throughout history
Yeah.
constantly happened throughout history. But we have to understand what that Pandora moment is for us and be willing to be who we're supposed to be. And I like the idea of just giving people permission to become the person they're supposed to be and not always stuck in the past. So the Rev part of Rev Think is a little bit of nod to the Reverend in me to say, hey, this is, there's something bigger we should be worrying about your whole life and what your life is for, more than just the job or the career that we're living out inside of it.
Keep preaching, brother Tim. I love it. Oh my God. That was beautiful. That's going to be an
Thanks.
excellent clip.
Yeah, that's great.
uh,
That's all I'm about. Just make
yeah.
clips.
I love it. Well,
Yeah.
Tim, we are actually a little bit over time, so I apologize if we've messed up the schedule at all today. But before we wrap, I would like to ask you one last question. Is there anyone or anything in your career you'd like to shout out to the audience that you haven't already mentioned? Maybe a mentor, valuable resource, or favorite client?
You know, I'll say one person that's been in my career all 30 years, or at least most of the 30 years, is my friend Alex Durbin. He actually was, when I was at Imaginary Forces, I think he was 19 years old when I hired him. He's a very incredible person. I think in his young 20s, he was head of production at Imaginary Forces. And so that's not an unstoppable achievement. He did pretty amazing. He went off and worked with Kyle Cooper at Prologue, has done many different features that way. But the why I would shout him out is like he's always been there. He was there at my graduation from seminary. He was there when I left Imaginary Forces and was dealing with some issues there. And he's there today too. He and I are making some films together right now and kind of exploring things. So he might be the hidden figure of my life that I always know there's somebody there for it. So Alex is
Oh yeah.
definitely one professionally. But my wife is truly the angel. She's put up with a lot of crazy
Mm.
crap. And, the industry changes and our life changes too. So she's always been there from the beginning of me going door to door in Burbank or today with our 5 boys and
Five
having them
boys.
graduate. Yeah. Yeah. The youngest is in college and all the things we're dealing with life too. So we've done all of life together. So it's been pretty amazing.
I love that for you guys. And, shout out to anybody who's trying to do anything hard. Having a partner that loves you and supports you and picks you up every time you fall on your face is absolutely priceless. So,
It's incredible. I mean, almost from the day I met her, she's been my inspiration, and it's the reason why I knew I could succeed. So
mm,
the reason why I could go park my car is because I knew, like, well, she'll always be there. She'll be there for me. She's my rock, and so to work to to be a good partner in return has always made me a better person. That's one thing to inspire, but also just the support and security that somebody will see me through it has allowed me to make a lot of life changes and be successful. And nowadays we're old together and we get to travel the world together and go visit studios and go to conferences and that kind of stuff. So we're both benefiting from this life together, but for sure it's been pretty amazing.
Well, that is beautiful. And I've been with my wife for over 20 years.
Oh, that's amazing.
21. And, I want to be just like you when I grow up, Tim. So I love it. Thank you for sharing that. So.
You're just 10 years behind me. You're doing great.
Perfect. Awesome, man. Well, shout out to, I think we met on LinkedIn, just networking.
Yeah.
No, I'm trying to think. I think Shireen Strasberg told me about
Shireen did
RevThink.
it. That's right.
Yeah. So let's shout out Shireen for letting
Shireen.
me know about RevThink. Super cool. So, all right. So we've been talking with Tim Thompson, and you can check him out more at revthink.com. That's RevThink.com. But if the listeners want to follow up with you directly, where's the best place to go?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, if you're a creative entrepreneur and you want to join the community, you can go to revthink.com/community and join us. There's nearly 800 business owners like yourself out there. So there's a lot of us all over the world, 60 countries that we're celebrating. And we do things like small groups within the community and have our own kind of social posts and sometimes accelerators to just learn different concepts. So it's a great place to meet people like yourself and connect. And then if you want to get a hold of me directly, it's really simple, tim@revthink.com. And then, I'm on LinkedIn or whatever else. You can probably find me all those places.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Tim, for being on the show. And we will see everyone next time. Thank you for tuning in. Take it easy.
Carl, this is great. Thank you.
We really hope you enjoyed the show. Please like and subscribe to join us on our next journey through the world of art and business on the Pixel Retentive Podcast.